Welcome to Decaf, Please, a podcast about cultivating calm and mastering your mindset. I'm Hill, ex-anxious wreck, health and wellness journalist, and certified yogi/nutrition coach. My goal is to help you slow things down, overcome your blocks, and take your power back so you can have the kind of life that you truly, truly love. Ready? Let's get into it. Welcome back to Decaf, Please. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and I hope you're well wherever you are in the world. I thought, what better way to kick off this podcast than to talk about the anxiety that comes from having anxiety. My goal is to remove any sense of stigma or shame that you might be experiencing about the fact that you're struggling. Let me be the first to tell you, there's nothing wrong with you. You are perfectly imperfect, just like the rest of us. You just need a little TLC right now. It may also help to reframe your relationship to anxiety. As soon as I learned the process that I'm going to share with you today, my worry easily decreased by half. It was a real game changer. So in today's episode, I'll share with you a quick story about my own anxiety to lay the groundwork for what I'm talking about, and 8 steps that you can take to reframe your anxiety as an ally rather than an enemy. For timestamps on this content, be sure to check out the show notes. And before we dive in, a quick disclaimer. I am not a mental health clinician. I am just a stranger on the internet sharing what worked for me to get my anxiety under control. Always, always do what's best for you. Take everything I say with a grain of pink salt, pick up what resonates, leave what doesn't. So to kick things off, let me take you back to my early 20s. You never forget your first panic attack, am I right? Oh man, in my case, I had just gotten home and I was explaining to my college roommate that me and my partner at the time, on again, off again, on again, off again. Well, my partner dumped me. And all of a sudden, I was trying to explain this story and mid-sentence, I couldn't breathe. I had never experienced anything like that in my life. And I had my back against the wall. I remember I slid down to the floor of our apartment, crying and trying to catch my breath with no luck. And my roommate, bless her heart, she knew exactly what to do. So she ran straight into the kitchen and came back with a brown paper bag. She handed it to me and said, "Breathe, just breathe, Hill. You're okay, just breathe." And sure enough, within a few minutes of breathing into that bag, calm was restored. But what I remember most about that moment is not the panic attack, but what made the whole scenario worse was the anxiety I felt about having the anxiety in the first place. I was so embarrassed. I just felt like a mess, and I felt so bad for burdening my loved ones. Of course, knowing what I know now, if I would have just accepted that I was having stress and a panic attack, I would have been at a level 5 instead of a level 10. Feeling anxious about having the anxiety really adds another layer on top of existing pain, and it's something that doesn't actually need to be there. When you can accept anxiety as part of your reality, it releases its mighty grip. So the first step in this whole process is to forgive yourself. Here's why. It's the whole crux of this episode. Your anxiety is not your fault. Have you seen the way we live? Humans were not designed to live the lives that we do. Constant notifications, 1 million emails a week, endless workdays, social media competition, a barrage of sad and scary news stories, especially right now. I mean, hint, hint, turn off your TV, please. It's too much. It's too much on our nervous systems, and we're all suffering as a result. And if the current treatment models for anxiety and stress were effective, we wouldn't be in the midst of a growing mental health crisis. I know as a journalist, I wouldn't keep getting writing assignments from my editors like how to help a friend with a panic attack or 10 products for stress relief. According to the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, 40 million American adults have anxiety, and that number is growing all the time. So, know this up front. Your anxiety is a product of a system designed to exhaust you. I'll say that again. Your anxiety is a product of a system designed to exhaust you. Your nervous system is intelligent, but it's also primal. It evolved at a time when there were predators around every corner. It's there to tell you if there's a tiger nearby. It activates your fight or flight response, and all your systems go into high alert. The problem is, it can't tell the difference between the actual tiger or an angry email from your boss. Your body literally treats it the exact same way. So you're sort of walking around in a perennial state of fight or flight, and it's not even your fault. So that's the first step. Forgive yourself for the fact that you have anxiety in the first place, because it actually has very little to do with you. Your body is just trying to do what it thinks it needs to do in an overstimulated world, and it's trying to protect you. So, how else can you release your anxiety around anxiety and reframe it? I'll tell you steps 2 through 8 coming up, but first, a word about Skillshare. If you're stressed to the max these days, you're not alone, and carving out a little you time might just be the thing you need to help take the edge off, and Skillshare can help you with that. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of classes in design, business, tech, and more. Personally, I've used Skillshare to watch classes in podcasting, photography, and even self-care. Right now, listeners of Decaf Please can get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. There's no long-term commitment, and you can cancel anytime. To get started on your free 30-day trial, click on the link in the show notes below. Thank you so much, Skillshare, for supporting this show. And now, back to the rest of this episode. So we've already talked about step 1, about how to reframe anxiety and make it your ally, and that is to forgive yourself. Step 2 is to detach. Recognize you are not your anxiety. You do not have anxiety either. You are the host to anxious thoughts. You are simply holding your anxiety right now, which means you also have the power to let it go. Think about this for a second. If you go to your grocery store right now and you pick up a banana, are you that banana? No, of course not. You're just holding it. And when you're done, you let it go. And then you can walk over to a different section and pick up a watermelon, and then do you become that watermelon? No, of course not. Anxiety is the same way. You don't have to allow it to integrate as a part of your identity, saying things like, I'm an anxious person. It does not have to fuse with your identity. It can really just be crossing your path temporarily. Think of it as separate from you, and that step alone can be really powerful. So step 1, forgive yourself. Step 2, detach from it. And step 3 is to name it. I like to think of my anxiety as a jumping, barking, untrained dog. And so if we think about it like a dog, what happens if a dog is trying to get your attention and you ignore it? You can tell them no, you can look the other way, you can numb out on Netflix, but what's going to happen? It's going to keep bothering you until it gets your attention. That's anxiety. So when I think of my anxiety as an untrained barking dog, it reminds me that I need to give it some attention. Personally, for me, I've named mine Kali. My anxiety dog in my mind is Kali, which is the Hindu goddess of destruction. I know that's kind of intense, but it's really fitting. So step 1, forgive yourself. Step 2, detach from it. Step 3, name it. And now step 4 is to talk to it. So when my anxiety Kali comes around, I have to stop whatever I'm doing. I breathe. I journal. I take a quiet moment. I quietly excuse myself from wherever I am. Sometimes I even pull out my phone and create like a video diary as if I'm talking to a therapist to try and work through some kind of tough emotion. Then I just straight up ask my anxiety, hey, why are you here? And then I listen to the answer, and I try to listen with detachment and non-judgment, no matter how strange or bizarre it sounds. Sometimes the answer will be really specific, like, I'm anxious about that bill I have to pay on Friday. But sometimes it's more obscure. It'll say something like, I feel anxious about that guy you met yesterday. He reminds me of someone from childhood, but I can't quite place it. When you talk to your anxiety in this way and have that two-way dialogue, you can really get valuable information that can help you process this experience. The next step, step 5, is to feel it. So, okay, let's come back to that dog analogy. What do dogs do when they run around in a yard? Sometimes they bring you back something disgusting, right? Or cats as well do this. So back to the dog analogy. At some point, anxiety is going to drop something unpleasant at your feet and expect you to pick it up. Grief, fear, anger, rage, disappointment, something. And it would be tempting to just leave it there, but that actually won't help. In this case, you have to pick it up and feel it fully. Now, this is contrary to what you'll often hear out there. There's this really bizarre self-help advice floating around our culture, and it is to distract yourself. I could not disagree more. I think the reason that we toss around this idea that you can just distract yourself is because we live in what I call the Band-Aid culture. We've been taught to habitually and systematically avoid anything uncomfortable and seek out external distractions to cover up our internal pain. If you have a headache, grab a pill. If you're anxious, grab a cigarette. If you have insomnia, grab a cocktail. If you're bummed out, grab your remote. If you're grieving, grab a spoon. You get the idea. But anxiety is trying to call our attention because it means that something needs to be felt. And oftentimes, I've found in my own experience, anxiety is more of a surface layer emotion for something deeper. So you'll be feeling anxious and stressed and off, and you're just not sure why. But if you sit there for a moment and you spend time with that feeling, you'll see that as you pull back the veil on anxiety, what really is underneath it is like grief or pain or sadness or some sort of unresolved trauma. And it's leaning into that discomfort of anxiety that really catapults us to the next level. That's what it's there for. That's why it showed up. So we can avoid anxiety, but we're missing the whole point. The only way out of it is through it. Massive discomfort is the catalyst for massive growth. When we feel it, we heal it. Okay, repeat after me. When we feel it, we heal it. The sixth step in this process is to pacify it. Anxiety is not going to leave until it's been reassured that we're safe. The same way that a car engine light is not going to turn off until the engine is addressed. That's its job. That's why it's there. But you get to a point where you can't logic your way out of anxiety. Even if, mentally you feel okay, sometimes your body is still hanging on, thinking that you're stressed out about something. So at that point, you have to negotiate terms. Anxiety might demand, for example, that you take off the whole rest of your day of work. And then you can say, okay, I hear you. I hear you, anxiety. Let's compromise. I can't take the whole day off work, but why don't I clear my schedule for this afternoon? Or I can't take a whole day off work, but tonight I'm going to climb into a warm bath. Here's why this works. When you're holding anxiety, you can't access your inner wisdom because your fight or flight mode is engaged. You are very literally walking around like on hyper alert with all your systems ready to fight off some tiger or run away from one. So you have to get those systems to shut down. In my experience, having an anchor point or a small next step can give anxiety the proverbial chew toy for a while I sort out the plan and how to address the problem that's causing the anxiety in the first place. Does that make sense? You're giving your anxiety something smaller to hold on to so that you, your higher self, can focus on the big picture. The seventh and penultimate step in this process is to be grateful. Okay, I know that sounds super counterintuitive, but in truth, anxiety is saving your life. If it wasn't there, you wouldn't know when something was off. And there are actually a number of benefits to being a person who lives with anxiety, from heightened creativity to increased empathic ability to better performance, all research backed. So rather than kick anxiety out, what would happen if you accepted it as your annoying yet effective guard dog? Believe it or not, it deserves love. I mean, that doesn't mean it needs to run the household. I do, you do, but it's more than welcome to share your space, right? Surrender. The final step, number 8, is to greet your anxiety on a daily basis. This can look like a meditation practice, 10 minutes of journaling, sitting in nature, but you have to sit with your anxiety every day as if it's an old friend. That way, it doesn't take you by surprise and show up unannounced, like in the middle of a meeting or on a date. So, to summarize this process about how to reframe anxiety: 1, release your guilt. 2, detach. 3, name it. 4, talk to it. 5, feel it. 6, pacify it. 7, be grateful for it. And 8, hold space for it every single day. If you want to dive more in depth about how to take your power back over anxious thoughts, I highly, highly recommend a book called The Untethered Soul: The Journey Behind Yourself by Michael A. Singer. That book was a total game changer for me. I got so much value out of it, so I'll leave a link to that in the show notes. I want to close today's episode with a quote about anxiety that I really love from Thich Nhat Hanh, who is a Vietnamese author and a Buddhist monk. He says, "Invite your fear into consciousness and smile through it. Every time you smile through your fear, it will lose some of its strength." And there you have it, my friend. I am wishing you a peaceful week ahead with your new pal, anxiety, and all the other beautiful, complicated emotions that are an integral part of this human experience. And with that, have a beautiful rest of your day. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. If you like this podcast, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, or send it to someone you love. I so appreciate you, and your support is what keeps this show going. If you have a question or an idea for a topic to be featured in a future episode, I'd love to hear from you. You can reach out at decafplease.com or find me on Instagram at decaf.please. Until next time, peace be with you on your journey. I'm sending you so much light, love, and of course, that endless calm. We'll talk soon, okay?